My dad called me a loser and let my sisters take my room after I went bankrupt. So I vanished. And what happened next flipped their world into chaos. It started when my business failed. I had put every last dime I had into it, quit my steady job and went all in. It was an online store selling custom mobile phone accessories. The first few months were okay, sales were slow to come in, but I was optimistic. I thought, this is how all businesses start. Then things went downhill. Suppliers delayed shipments, and I got hit with bad reviews from angry customers. It's crazy how fast that can snowball. One negative review turns into 5, and suddenly, no one trusts your business. The ads I was running were burning through my savings without bringing in enough new customers. I kept thinking I could fix it, that I was just one marketing push away from success. But I wasn't. Within a year, I was broke. I told Lindsay everything one night over dinner. She listened quietly and then hit me with the words I was afraid to say. I can't be with someone who can't give me stability. Stability, that word stabbed me in the chest. I thought we were a team, that we'd face this together, but no. She made it clear that until I figured things out, we were done. She called it a break, but she didn't even try to sugarcoat it. I knew what that meant. She wasn't coming back. 2 weeks later, my lease was up. I had no choice. I had to leave the apartment. I packed up everything I owned, which wasn't much at the time. Just clothes, my laptop, and a few sentimental things I couldn't bear to leave behind. I stuffed it all into my beat-up car and drove to the only place I thought I'd be welcomed, my parents' house. When I got there, I told them everything. I didn't hold anything back. I explained how the business had collapsed, how Lindsay had left me, and that I just needed a place to stay for a while. I thought they'd understand, but my dad didn't. He just shook his head and said, "I told you this would happen. You should have gotten a real job like everybody else. Now look where you are, broke and alone." My mom was no better. She actually laughed when I mentioned Lindsay leaving. "Of course she left you," she said. "No woman wants to be with a loser." Hearing that from my own mother was like getting punched in the gut. I stood there hoping for the slightest bit of sympathy, but it never came. Then they dropped the real bomb. I couldn't stay with them. Apparently, my twin sisters, Emily and Grace, didn't want me there. Grace had taken over my old bedroom, and they didn't want the disruption of having me around. My parents said something about having to respect their wishes. They acted like they were sorry, but I knew they didn't really care. I didn't argue. I just turned around and left. What was the point? I had nowhere to go, no plan, and no money. It was one of the lowest points of my life. Sitting in my car, I started scrolling through my contacts, debating who to call. Most of my friends had drifted away over the years, and I was too embarrassed to ask them for help. Eventually, I landed on Eric's name. My cousin and I had been close growing up, though we hadn't talked much in recent years. I hesitated for a moment, then hit call. "Hey man, it's been a while," he answered. "Yeah, I know," I said, trying to keep it together. "Listen, Eric, I need a favor. I'm in a really bad situation right now." I told him everything. He didn't interrupt or judge, he just listened. When I finished, I braced myself for rejection, but what he said next blew me away. "Come stay with me," he said without hesitation, no questions asked. "Stay as long as you need to." That broke me. After all that had happened, someone had finally shown me kindness. I couldn't hold back the tears. I went straight to his house that night. He lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment, but he made room for me without complaint. Over the next few weeks, I started working as a courier, delivering packages to make ends meet. Eric even gave me a few $1,000s at one point. "You don't have to pay me back," he said. "You need it more than I do right now." I couldn't believe how generous he was. It gave me hope, like maybe I could pull myself out of this mess. And eventually, I did. But I wasn't just focused on rebuilding my life. I also had something else driving me: revenge. Living with Eric gave me time to breathe and think. He never judged me, and for the first time in weeks I felt like I wasn't drowning. I saved every dollar I made delivering packages and worked 10-hour shifts every day. I didn't go out, no eating out, no extras. I kept telling myself I wasn't going to get stuck. After a few months, I had enough money to try again, but I wasn't going to make the same mistakes this time. I kept my operation lean and simple. I found a supplier for a hot-selling item: wireless earbuds. It was a risky move, sure, but I had learned enough from my failure to do it differently. I used my last bit of cash to buy inventory and build a basic website. No bells and whistles, just a clean store with a few products and ads targeted to a niche audience. And then it happened. The orders started coming in. At first, it was just a few sales a day, but after 2 weeks, my ad campaign hit its stride. Suddenly, I was making over $1,000 a month. The next month, that number jumped to almost $6,000. I couldn't believe it. I was finally making money again. With each success, my confidence grew. I was back on my feet, but I couldn't forget how my parents and Lindsay had treated me. Their words echoed in my head every day: loser. Maybe when you get your act together. No woman wants to be with a broken man. I wasn't the same person they had knocked down. I was stronger, but I also had something else. A need to prove them all wrong. The first step in this plan was Lindsay. She hadn't expected me to come back, and I wanted to see how she would react now that I was doing well again. I sent her a message, keeping it casual. Hey, can we get together? I've been thinking a lot and wanted to talk. She replied pretty quickly, but her answer wasn't what I expected. Sorry, I've moved on. I'm seeing someone now. I didn't buy it. I thought she was just trying to make herself seem less available. I replied, that's too bad. I wanted to share some good news with you. My business is doing well, I'm renting a nice apartment again, and I'd really like to catch up. Let's have dinner. She must have been curious because a few minutes later she wrote back, okay, Saturday night, game on. Saturday came, and I made reservations at one of the nicest restaurants in town. I didn't do it to impress her, I did it to make a point. She showed up looking exactly as I remembered her. Long blonde hair, dressed to the nines. She smiled when she saw me and gave me a quick hug. I'm so glad you're okay, she said as we sat down. I always knew you had it in you. Maybe I was a little hard on you before. I just didn't know how to handle it all. I nodded, pretending to understand. I let her ramble on about how hard things had been for her after we broke up. She tried to make it sound like she still cared about me, that she'd been waiting for the right time to get back together. When the waiter brought our food, I ordered a bowl of soup. I sipped it slowly, keeping eye contact with her. You know, I said, I've been thinking a lot about what you said to me when you left, about how you needed stability and couldn't stick around for someone who was struggling. She gave me a guilty smile. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was scared. Before she could finish, I calmly picked up the soup bowl and poured it all over her. The restaurant fell silent. Gasps filled the room. Lindsay sat there, stunned, her hair and designer dress dripping with broth. You're cheap, I said, getting up. There's no future for us. Enjoy your night. I walked out without another word. The whole place was still staring, probably trying to process what had just happened. I didn't care. I blocked her number as soon as I got out. That was the last time I heard from her. But I wasn't done yet. My parents were next. They were going to see how wrong they were about me, and I had something special in mind for them. After cutting ties with Lindsay, I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off my chest. But I wasn't done. My parents had humiliated me and turned me away when I needed them most. Now that I was back on my feet, I wanted them to see how far I'd come, and I had a plan for that. About a month later, I got a call from Grace, one of my twin sisters. I hadn't spoken to her since the night I left my parents' house. At first, I thought it might be some kind of apology. It wasn't. Hey Nathan, guess what? Mom and Dad are throwing a big anniversary party next month, and they want the whole family there, she said cheerfully. I almost laughed out loud. The nerve! They hadn't wanted me around when I was broke and desperate, but now I was supposed to show up and celebrate with them? Yeah, right. But then an idea hit me. Sure, I'll be there, I replied. I started working on my plan immediately. First, I rented a high-end luxury car for the day. A sleek black Mercedes that practically screamed success. I also reached out to an old friend, Ashley, who had been crushing on me in college. We'd stayed friends over the years, and I knew I could count on her to play along. I asked if she'd pretend to be my fiancé for the party, and she was all in. You want me to make them jealous? Say no more, she laughed. The day of the party, we pulled up to my parents' house in the Mercedes. Ashley looked stunning in a designer dress I bought for the occasion. I wasn't just going to walk in there, I was going to make an entrance they'd never forget. As we stepped inside, all eyes turned to us. My parents were hosting in their large backyard, and about 50 family members and friends were mingling around. My dad noticed me first and did a double take. My mom followed his gaze, her mouth slightly open in surprise. Nathan, she finally managed to say, walking over. Wow, you look different. Mom, Dad, I said, smiling. This is Ashley, my fiancé. Fiancé? Grace shrieked from across the yard. She hurried over, wide-eyed. When did this happen? Ashley squeezed my hand and smiled warmly. We've been together for over a year now, she said. Nathan wanted to keep things quiet until he got his business going again. Oh yeah, I added casually. The business is thriving now, made just over $200,000 last quarter. We're thinking about buying a house soon. You could see the gears turning in their heads as they tried to process all of this. My dad, who had called me a failure, was suddenly speechless. My mom, who had laughed at me when Lindsay left, plastered on a fake smile and gushed, "Oh, that's wonderful. We're so proud of you, Nathan." Proud of me? Yeah, sure. Throughout the evening, I played the part flawlessly. Ashley charmed everyone, and my parents bent over backward to act like they had always supported me. But the real surprise came when Eric showed up unexpectedly. "Eric, what are you doing here?" I asked, pulling him aside. He grinned. "Grace invited me. She said the party was for family. I figured I'd stop by and see how you were doing." I hadn't planned on him being there, but it worked out perfectly. When my parents saw him, they got nervous. They knew Eric had helped me when they wouldn't. He wasn't someone they could easily brush off. "So, how's Nathan been treating you?" Eric said loudly, standing next to my dad. "He's done a lot since you guys kicked him out. Got to say, I'm impressed." The tension was thick. My dad stammered something about how they had always believed in me, but Eric wasn't buying it. "Right," Eric said with a smirk. "Funny how people suddenly care once you've made money." Ashley shot me a glance, clearly enjoying the show. I decided to end the night on my terms. During a toast, my dad stood up and said something about family sticking together through tough times. I couldn't help myself. I raised my glass and said, "That's true, though some people only show up when times are good. Thanks to those who were actually there for me when I needed it." I looked directly at Eric, and the message wasn't lost on anyone. My parents looked like they'd swallowed a lemon. After the party, Ashley and I drove off, laughing. "That was better than I expected," she said. But the best part came a few days later. I got a message from my mom, "Nathan, we need to talk. We didn't handle things the right way before. Please come by when you can." I stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had already won. I ignored my mom's message and got back to work. I was too busy growing my business to worry about their guilt trip. I expanded the product line, added new suppliers, and even hired a small team to help manage operations. Life was finally going the way I had always dreamed. I was building something that couldn't be taken away from me again. But just when I thought everything was under control, I got hit with a curveball. It was late one night when I got a call from Grace, the same sister who didn't want me at the house when I was down on my luck. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. "Hello?" "Nathan," she said, her voice trembling. "I need your help." That threw me off. Grace had always been the spoiled, self-centered one in the family. She never asked for help, she expected it. "What's going on?" I asked cautiously. "It's Dad," she said. "He's in the hospital. Heart attack." I froze. As much as I was still angry at him, hearing that shook me to my core for a few moments. I didn't know what to say. "Is he okay?" They said he's stable, but it was serious. "Can you come to the hospital?" I sighed, feeling conflicted. After everything he had said and done, did I really owe him anything? But then I remembered Eric's words at the party, "He's your dad, like it or not." As much as I hated to admit it, this was something I couldn't ignore. "Yeah, I'll be there," I finally said. When I arrived at the hospital, Grace, Emily, and my mom were in the waiting room. My mom looked like she'd been crying for hours. When she saw me, she rushed over and hugged me tightly. It caught me off guard. "Nathan, thank you for coming," she whispered. I didn't say anything. I wasn't here to make peace, I just wanted to know how bad things really were. "How is he?" I asked Grace. "They're running more tests," she said, "but the doctor said he's lucky. If he'd waited any longer to get to the ER." She didn't finish the sentence. I sat down and tried to process it all. I hadn't spoken to my dad since the party, and now he was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for his life. The man who had called me a failure was now completely vulnerable. An hour later, a doctor came out and told us we could see him. When I walked into the room, I barely recognized him. He looked older, weaker. He opened his eyes and saw me standing there. "Nathan," he said softly. I nodded. "Hey, Dad." There was a long pause. I expected him to say something condescending, maybe try to assert control like he always did, but instead he just stared at me with this tired, defeated look in his eyes. "I was wrong," he finally said, "about everything." I didn't know how to respond. This was the man who had kicked me out when I had nowhere to go, and now he was apologizing. Part of me wanted to walk out, but another part of me felt something shift inside. I wasn't the one who needed validation anymore. I'd moved past that. This was for him, not me. "I know," I said quietly. "Rest up. We can talk later." Over the next few days, I found myself visiting the hospital more often than I expected. My dad and I didn't have deep heart-to-hearts or anything dramatic, but slowly he started opening up. He admitted he had always been hard on me because he was scared I'd end up making the same mistakes he had when he was younger. He had started his own business once, failed, and it nearly destroyed his life. He didn't want me to go through that. "Doesn't excuse how I treated you," he said one day. I just didn't know how else to handle it. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was enough. Things started to change between us after that. I wouldn't say we were suddenly best friends, but the bitterness between us began to fade. My mom and sisters also softened. Grace even apologized for how she had treated me. It was surreal, like I had stepped into an alternate reality where my family actually respected me. But just as I thought things were finally settling down, I got hit with another surprise. One morning, I received an email from Lindsay. "Hey Nathan, I heard about the party from some mutual friends. I also heard about your dad. I just wanted to say I'm really sorry for how I treated you. I was selfish, and I regret it. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I laughed out loud. Talk about timing. I had already shut that chapter of my life, and now she wanted back in? I didn't even bother replying. I just forwarded the email to Ashley with the subject line, "You'll love this." Ashley replied with a single emoji, the one rolling its eyes. The final twist came from Eric. One evening he called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, you remember that time I gave you that money to get back on your feet?" "Of course," I said. "I'll never forget it." "Well," he said, "it wasn't just me. Grandpa left me some inheritance money before he passed. I've been thinking, maybe it's time we both did something big with it. I've got a business idea I want to run by you." It felt like everything had come full circle. The cousin who had saved me when no one else would now wanted to build something together. "I'm listening," I said. Over the next few months, Eric and I worked together on his business idea, an e-commerce platform that helped small brands streamline their product launches. We both knew the struggle of trying to build something from scratch, so the concept hit home for both of us. With my experience and Eric's funding, the business took off faster than either of us expected. We landed a few partnerships, and soon we were pulling in serious revenue. I finally felt like I had found my place. But that's when my family started creeping back into my life with expectations. It started subtly. Grace texted me one day, "Hey Nathan, can you help me with a loan? I'm looking to start my own salon, but the bank isn't giving me enough." A few days later, Emily reached out, "I'm having car trouble. I was wondering if you could help cover repairs." Then my mom called and danced around the subject, but I knew where it was going. "Your dad's been talking about retiring early. He's proud of how successful you've become, you know. He's always dreamed of traveling, but with medical bills it's tough right now." Suddenly, I was everyone's golden ticket. I'd gone from being the loser they didn't want around to their potential savior. One evening, I decided to confront it all head-on. I invited them over to my apartment for dinner. They showed up, all smiles, acting like one big happy family. I played along, serving wine and making polite conversation until we were all seated. "Let's get real," I said, putting my fork down. "I know why you're all here." They exchanged nervous glances. "You think I owe you something because I finally made it. But let me remind you of something. You weren't there when I needed you the most." Eric was... My dad cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "Nathan, we've apologized. We made mistakes, but family should stick together." "Family should stick together," I repeated, laughing bitterly. "You mean like when you turned me away after I lost everything? When you called me a failure and laughed when Lindsay left me?" They didn't say a word. "I'm not here to hold grudges," I continued, "but I'm also not here to be your bank. You all made it clear where I stood in this family when I hit rock bottom. I don't owe you anything now." Grace looked like she wanted to argue but thought better of it. Emily just stared at her plate. My mom finally spoke. "We were wrong, we know that. But we're still your family." "No," I interrupted. "Eric is my family. He helped me when no one else would. You don't get to rewrite history because it's convenient now." I stood up and walked to the door. "Dinner's over. I think you should leave." They hesitated for a moment but eventually stood and left in silence. That night, I sat on the balcony, looking out over the city. I thought I'd feel guilty or conflicted after putting them in their place, but I didn't. For the first time, I felt free. I had closed the door on the people who had abandoned me when I was down and built my life without them. Eric called later that night. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Exactly how I wanted it to," I said. "They got the message." "Good," he said. "You deserve better, man." "Yeah," I said, smiling. "I do." In the end, I didn't need revenge. Success was enough. And I finally realized I didn't need their approval or their apology to move forward. I had built my life from the ground up with no help from them, and now I was exactly where I wanted to be. Some people spend their lives chasing validation. Me? I had finally found peace.